Hey friends, this is Jeff. Big month for us on YouTube and Patreon. We will continue to release our best content on these platforms moving forward. Well worth subscribing to Patreon and YouTube. The links are in the show notes. And speaking of Patreon, all of our Patreon releases flow easily into your podcast feed. So once you sign up, you can simply listen to them right there on your podcast platform of choice. This November 2024, we will be posting 3 very long, like 2-3 hour long interviews with the most informed people we know about their Enneagram type. The first up is Dr. Mary Slattery, Enneagram 6. Dr. Slattery has studied Enneagram under all the most amazing thinkers and routinely elevates the hearts of 6s in ways I have heard nowhere else. Lots of clarity and wisdom, and her interview will post November 8th. Next is the Joel Stabile, talking shop about Enneagram 7s. Joel, likewise, may have more conversations with Enneagram scholars than anybody else on the planet, and he is able to articulate the heart of 7s with real insight and understanding. That will post on November 15th. And lastly is our good friend Erica Jobs. Erica had one of the very first Enneagram podcasts, and as an Enneagram 8 has sat in this material for over 10 years. Her perspective on Enneagram is different than ours, but she is also responsible for some of the real breakthroughs TJ and I have had in understanding Enneagram. This is some of our best work and will be the Patreon releases for November. Then, coming in December 2024, we are going to release the next 3 drafted chapters of our upcoming book, Around the Circle. So more than half of our new book is up online for you to digest. Again, if you sign up for a paid membership prior to January 1st, we will send you 2 signed books. In 2025, we will send you the physical published version of Around the Circle next year, as well as a signed first edition of my first book, 7. We will also answer up to 3 Enneagram questions per month for you, and you will get the sheer joy and delight of helping us help other people find and enjoy the Enneagram. That's our plug. Thanks for listening. May all good things be yours. I'm Jeff Cook.
And I'm TJ Wilson.
And this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly. I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
The Enneagram is a map of the human personality. It's a tool for navigating relationships. It creates language for what motivates us and helps us look at the way we look at everything else. Most importantly, the Enneagram is a mirror because sometimes you need to help seeing yourself. My name is Jeff Cook. I'm a longtime professor of philosophy in Greeley, Colorado. With me is TJ Wilson, coffee guru, lover of theology, and Enneagram ninja.
Hello.
My man.
Dude, it is finally cold today. Right. And it is so wonderful.
Fall is upon us.
Oh my gosh.
Fall has fallen on us.
Finally.
My 2 puppies have never experienced cold.
Oh, sure.
They came in very confused look on their face and decided to both huddle in the corner.
I'm excited to see what happens when there's snow on the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
Last time there was snow on the ground, see, they may have forgotten it. They were so small. They dove. They were really into it. But I think they've realized the glories of sleeping in the morning and comforters. And
sounds like my kind of dog.
Well, today we're continuing our series on New to This. One of my favorite YouTube series does basic, moderate, and then slightly advanced in terms of cooking. And they show you, here's how you make an omelet, very basic. Here's how you make an omelet. If you want to get, stretch your arms out a little bit more moderate. And then they're like, and this is what the professional chefs do.
Yeah.
I really want to spend some time in that beginner level, but push a little bit further and say, when you're ready, here's something else to consider. And here's something else to consider.
Yeah.
And what we're going to hit today is often called the centers or the intelligence centers, and give you something that's bite-sized, worth chomping down on and saying, oh, here's a basic about me when I come to the Enneagram, because I'm new to this. Here's a basic about me that's just going to help me navigate the world.
Yep.
Intelligence centers, oftentimes, a lot of people will start here and say, this is kind of the beginning. You identify yourself as a body type, a heart type, or a head type. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But to get into this, I wanted to do an illustration, 2 illustrations. One is from nutrition and one is from cosmology. First one is nutrition-wise. And TJ, you're really into nutrition.
You know it.
Quite thoughtful about
All
your
the-
diet and habits.
The whey and the chia seeds and the other stuff that people do.
Yep. There's 3 types of food groups for TJ. It's carbohydrates, carbohydrates, and carbohydrates.
Yeah,
I believe.
but I don't call them that. I call them donuts, pizza, and lasagna.
That's exactly right. Get some fat in there as well. The basics to nutrition is understanding what's going into your body. If you understand what's going into your body, you can begin to understand what it's doing in your body. Is it building your fat stores? Is it building, your energy reserves? Is it building your muscles? These are parts of nutrition, and just having an understanding of what's going in allows you to kind of control what's going on inside of you. And it's real similar, it seems to me, here. We are bringing in all the time information from our emotions, from our relationships. We're bringing in information from our head, from our deductions, from our analysis. And we're bringing in information from our intuitions, like we just feel a certain way in the world. Those are 3 kinds of information. And we kind of pivot from one to the other depending on the situation, but it's 3 kinds of information, 3 kinds of intelligence. Like some people will talk about IQs, your intelligence quotient. They'll also talk about EQs, like your emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And those are different. Like you can have somebody who's just off the charts in terms of their relational aptitude. And you can have people who are off the charts in terms of deduction. But those are 2 very different types of smarts, right?
Yeah. And it's funny that we often see that people who are really high in one of them are kind of bad at the other one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Worth noting. You kind of lean into one of those as opposed to the other. We might dare say that their centers may, pivot towards the place they're most comfortable.
Sure.
One illustration. Second illustration. You will be familiar with telescopes.
Yeah.
Telescopes
That's the thing that lets you see in space, right?
Space things.
Yep.
You can see all sorts of space things through the telescopes.
Love it. Do it every night.
You also are familiar with reading glasses.
Yes.
Got yourself a set of them right now. I did not wear my reading glasses today, and that's why I screwed up the intro when we started. This thing's blurry. I hope I remember it.
Yeah, it's pretty close. It's only been 5 years.
You'll also be familiar with microscopes.
Yes.
Microscopes are going to get zero in on some cellular activity, get you real small.
Yep.
Imagine it was the case that you could only see through one of these. Seems to me, if you could only see through either the reading glasses, the microscope, or the telescope, when talking about the world, what you emphasized would be fundamentally affected.
Right.
This is what reality is like. This is the thing that really matters. Here's what we really need to consider, because the glasses that you're looking through, the lens you're looking through, is highlighting certain things.
Right.
This is what the centers are like, it seems to me. This has at least been a helpful meditation for me recently. Some of us are bringing in the world through our emotions, through our heart, through our relational core. That's like a set of glasses.
Yeah.
Like everything we emphasize ends up being, how do people connect with one another? Do they connect with me?
Mm-hmm.
Am I actually gaining the attention that I want?
Mm-hmm.
Have my relationships gone well? That is fundamental, foundational. This is what reality is. It's a bunch of relationships, don't you think?
Right.
Because those are the
makes
glasses.
sense to me.
Second set of glasses. I'll spell this out and then TJ's going to bring the pain. A second set of glasses is what we might call like cognitive glasses or head glasses. They're the glasses where you're very analytic. You're going to think through things very, very hard. This sort of set of glasses is very concerned with safety, with security, with resources, with ensuring I have what I need just to be comfortable in the world. And then the last set of glasses are more intuitive. They're spatially oriented glasses. They're very aware of your surroundings. There's a feeling element, but it's not about relationships. It's, do I feel comfortable in the world? Are people trying to impose their will on me? And those sets of glasses really matter. And so do the cognitive glasses, and so do the relational glasses. And that's head, heart, gut. You know, our heart is relationships, our head is about resources and safety, and our body is very spatial, really worried about control and just feeling comfortable in the world. And say it's the case that you emphasized one of those sets of glasses more than the others. You know, one of them was kind of primary. A lot of the Enneagram starts here. It is, what are the glasses that you're wearing and how do they influence how you see the world? If you can name that, it's going to say a lot about why you're prioritizing what you prioritize. It's going to say a lot about why you are going into this job and not that job, why you're emphasizing this in your family and not that in your family. Nearly everything you do is going to be based on the lenses through which you see everything else.
Right. Coming back to that scopes analogy, if the glasses that you were born with are reading glasses, then someone else is going to say, look at the moon. It did this thing the other night. Did you see the moon? And you're going to be like, no, I couldn't see the moon because it was blurry, because that's not how my glasses work.
Yep.
Or you may say, what's a moon? Because you actually don't perceive things that are that far away.
Not even on your radar.
Not even on your radar. And that works all across the board. We are constantly interacting with people who have a different sense of information than we do.
Yep.
And this can be a source of so much disconnect. And once we start to figure it out, it can be a source of really beautiful combining and harmony. And like, this person sees something that I can't see, so I'm going to keep them next to me all the time.
Yep.
So
what ends up happening on the relationship side of things is sometimes we have relationships where people are looking through the same lenses. So on this front, both Tia, Jay, and I both look through the body type lenses, and we actually understand each other at a very depthy level because we're both looking at the world through the similar glasses.
Right.
What's interesting is my wife and I have different glasses, but that's one of the reasons that we actually gravitate towards one another. Is we're complementary. She sees the world so much differently than I and brings a lot more skills to the world and to relationships that I simply don't have. And so too, I bring a lot of insights, interests, expertise into the world that she doesn't have. Creates a complementary structure. And that also can be fantastic. Yeah. Naming these sorts of things, incredibly helpful and central to what Enneagram does.
Yep.
So since you're new to this is what we want to hit is just, here's the basics on head, heart, gut, or head, heart, body. Sometimes gut and body are kind of interchangeable in a lot of people's language. But starting with the heart types, this would be 2s, 3s, and 4s. And so my assumption going in, we're starting out, this is around the circle. We pick a topic, go around the circle. We're talking about head, heart, body types. Heart types are going to be 2s, 3s, and 4s. So if you've typed yourself as a 2, 3, or 4, or if you know somebody who's a 2, 3, or 4, let me describe some of the lenses through which they're looking at the world. And this is going to be super helpful to, like, this just kind of knowing how they see the world. The glasses that they're wearing gives us so much empathy for ourselves, for others. It lets us get into this material. So 2s, 3s, and 4s are going to take in the world through an emotional filter, a relationship-oriented filter. They are principally aware of their emotional posture towards others and of others and how they're received. Are they received by others? Are they loved by others? Are others giving them the affection, attention that they crave? And 2s, 3s, and 4s, because of their lens, they're going to feel good. They're going to feel centered when they feel seen and validated by other folks. You'll notice how they're looking at the world and how they feel good kind of go together. And it's worth just kind of naming that. That feels like the basics to me about heart types.
Yeah, there's a sense of, like, it's almost as if their understanding of themselves comes through this lens of, what do other people think about me? How am I connected to other people? what are the relationships? What are the friendships? Who loves me? That's how I know where I am, who I am, what resources I have available to me, is because I have these relationships. It's a relational centered outlook.
Some of us are real bad at that front. Like, it's almost like we're looking through a microscope when that's like a telescope, you know? It's almost like the field of vision is completely askew. We need to actually really work hard to get our emotional insights sound. And we'll talk about that in future podcasts. But
well, and we all know, we've all probably met at least one person in our lives that it really did not seem like they understood that their behavior impacted other people.
yeah, right.
Right. And it's possible, because of knowing these centers, it's possible that they don't. It's possible that they literally do not have a way to access that thing that shows related connectivity.
Yep.
And so getting in touch with this idea of seeing the world through this lens. If you are a 2, 3, or 4, like the information is coming at you through your relationships, through your emotional filters. That is how you are getting all of that information. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it can also have its downsides.
Right. It's like being, if you're in a foreign land and you don't know, German, you're in Germany, you don't know German. It's like, this is just a place I'm ignorant, probably need to build up those German speaking muscles. That would be the first center. A second center is often called the head types. Head types take in the world through their thoughtful analytic filter. That's the glasses that they're looking through. They are principally aware of what they have and how they can employ it for predictability, for safety, for stability. They are using their resources in order to feel good in the world. And what feeling good means is something like stability and predictability. They feel centered when they know that the world is safe, stable, and that they can pivot according to what they want.
Yeah, where those heart types, 2, 3s, and 4s are really like steeped in subjectivity, steeped in relational connection. Head types, 5, 6s, and 7s are very much interested in the data, in the resources that they can gather and collect and store up so that they have the thing that they want to get, whether it's opportunity, whether it's preparedness, that stability. They gain a sense of who they are through those resources. And so they are scanning the world, trying to collect the right information, the right pieces to gather all of those resources and keep them where they need to be, so that they know they can predict what's coming, so that they can know they have enough to get through, etc. They are very interested in those resources and collecting and holding them.
That type, just put a special footnote on it, can be very analytical. Again, like really emphasize what they are thinking. Whereas the heart type might use a lot of language like, this is how I'm feeling, and I want you to understand how I'm feeling.
Right.
The head type likely is going to say, no, this is, use your head. You need to think about this. I need to pause for a minute and consider, all that's happened and what I think about this situation.
Right.
Different filters. They're pushing into different parts of themselves in order to get centered. Is why they're in part why they're the centers. These are how you center.
Right.
But you can see the difference.
Yeah. And the other types, it's not that they don't think, like that is a whole other part of the conversation, but everyone thinks, obviously. These types, 5, 6s, and 7s, are taking in information through that analytical center, through that place that needs to know where the resources are, what it needs to collect and index all of their resources, right?
It's perfect. Last type, 8s, 9s, and 1s. By the way, the head types, I don't know that I said this. The head types are 5, 6s, and 7s. And so if you typed as a 5, 6, or 7, that would be your center. Lastly is the body types. These are 8s, 9s, and 1s. If you typed as an 8, 9, or a 1, this is your center and the filter through which you experience the world. It's your body. This is a little bit stranger to come to, but for many of us, we get it. Body types are going to take the world in intuitively. Some folks will talk about trusting their gut, or trusting that intuitive side. They are principally aware. Here's the clue: they're principally aware of their spaces and maintaining control. Maintain control of stuff out there. Oftentimes it can be even maintain control of themselves and their appetites. They'll just have a high degree, like a radar for control issues around them. And they feel centered when they are able to direct their own life and just have oversight over the things that matter most to them, because they are looking at the world in a spatial way, an intuitive way. Those control issues are central to like what's first on their checklist. I want to make sure that I'm under control, or that nobody's trying to control me.
Right. These are the types where physicality, we said intuition, energy is a big sort of sense for these types. It's hard to explain what this is, because it is the ineffable sense of your physical reality. So we have these heart types that are all doing the relational processing. We have the head types that are all doing the sort of ration and logical processing. And then realistically, we live in a physical world, in a physical body, and our body takes in information as well.
Yep.
And these types, their primary way of gathering information in the world is through their body, through that gut feeling, through a sense of like, does this room make my hair stand on end? Like there's some sort of knowing about how they feel, their body feels in the world.
Yep.
And that is where that control aspect comes from. Like our will lives in this space, right? To have the will to enact change in the universe requires a physical presence in the universe. And this is the thing that these types, 8s, 9s, and 1s, gather their primary information from their sense of physical space.
As it stands then, like if you're just beginning, if you're just getting into this, some of the things you can do with this information is just name, this is my center. This is how I come to the world. One of the things I've started really being fascinated by is how often in literature there is a trio of characters who are trying to overcome some obstacle. Like you have the three heroes assemble, as it were. And oftentimes these three heroes are very much in line with you got like a head guy and a body guy and a relationship guy or girl. And they end up through this mixture of head heart. They are overcoming the problems at hand. Right. And I feel like we gravitate towards this because that's who we are. Like all of us have relational intelligence. All of us have, heady cognitive intelligence, and all of us have intuitive intelligence. And we solve problems this way. And I think this is why we're kind of drawn to this. So I'm a Lord of the Rings guy. You can look at Gandalf, who is just very thoughtful. Much of his stuff is planning and considering the landscape and the map, and here's the problems at hand. And then there's the physical king, Aragorn. And Aragorn is all brute strength, and I'm going to behead 2,800 orcs, apparently. And then you have Frodo, whose only ambition is fighting for the Shire and the people that he loves and cares about. And you have this mixture of Gandalf, Frodo, and Aragorn. There's countless different,
from Plato to the Deathly Hallows, you can find this everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but you, as an introductory matter, head, heart, gut, get a sense of you are your emotions. You don't just have emotions, you are your emotions. You don't just have thoughts, you are your thoughts. And you don't just have a body, you are your body. And they're all this wonderful mixture that makes you. But you emphasize one over the others.
Yeah, one of the things that helped me understand this was the idea that, like, what happens inside me when I know something to be true.
Mm-hmm.
right? It may be the case that I have to spend time with a couple of options, or like making decisions happens this way. But when I land on something that's like, I know this, I know it from a gut place.
Mm-hmm.
My partner is a 6, and when she knows something, she has to understand it cognitively,
Mm-hmm.
right? There and heart types, when they know something, it comes through their relationships, it comes through their feelings. Almost every heart type I know can't make a decision without talking to 3 or 4 other people first.
Yep. That's a
And it's
great way to put
because
that.
relationality has to be part of that decision making.
Yep.
So if you are struggling with understanding this, or whether you feel right about the center that you think you're in, that is one of the ways that I really came to understand I am a body type, because when I know things, I know it in my gut. And
Yeah.
sometimes I cannot explain it.
Yep. Yeah. To piggyback on that, I'll make long lists when big decisions are in the air. I'm making, a big purchase, right? And I'll make big long lists, and none of those lists really do anything but target my gut. And there's a point where my gut moves and says, no, it's time to go forward. And you couldn't necessarily I couldn't put my finger on the thing that says, what was it that pushed you over the edge? It was like, well, I had this intuitive sense. It was go time. Whereas exactly as you're saying, head types different, heart types, these folks affirmed my decision and thoughts and all the rest. And so go time.
Yep.
Boom. Love that. So that's the basics. Introductory matters. You're new to this. However, this is just first steps in the centers. The centers actually kind of blow open quite a bit, and it's worth naming kind of some of the next steps. The next big step for me, kind of the moderate middle level, would be what's often called underlying feelings. Now, with each of the centers, head, heart, body, each of them, when receiving the world, there's an emotion that often comes up. And this is also worth naming. You'll notice when I say, here is your type, here's your center, and then I name the emotion, you're probably going to say, oh yes, I understand that emotion also colors most of what I see in the world. So I want to start with the head types here. It's a little bit easier to see. Head types will routinely say that they struggle with anxiety or fear, because part of their filter is looking out at the world and all the things that might happen. And this produces an emotion. They need to think about their resources, how it feels safe and secure. They're doing the analysis. And complementary to that way of feeling good in the world is that underlying feeling of fear. It can even be kind of a fuel that gets them moving. Like, I need to understand this because X, Y, and Z might happen. And X, Y, and Z are sources of anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And we're not talking about like being afraid of spiders, or like me, afraid of the ocean or octopuses, or like that. That's a different kind of fear. There's that sort of underlying fear that decides how we move, that needs to be prepared. The fear that says, I can't leave the house without this, and this, because I need to know that I have those things before I leave, just in case those situations come up, right? There is a sense of, I am not going to have enough. I'm not going to be able to get where I need to go. I'm going to be asked to do something that I'm not ready for. Those kinds of fears are what drive this type. And it comes from that head. It comes from the information gathering process. If you don't have enough information, things are gonna go badly,
right?
When you get to wherever it is you're going, right? So fear and head.
Fear is there. You'll notice this. For those of you who typed as 5s, you want to be informed. You want to have the clear data. Why? One of the reasons why is because it's going to alleviate some of that underlying fear. For those of you who are 6s, you're going to want certainty. You're going to want assurances. Why? Well, something in you says if I just have the insights, then that's going to alleviate some of that underlying fear and anxiety. If you're a 7, you're going to want to maximize your options. You're going to know what's out there, the places that you can bounce, the next thing you can do. Why? Options are going to alleviate some of that underlying fear. Yeah. All of this in terms of your desires. This is what Enneagram is primarily about. It's about your motive. Your motive and desires are here. It's like the motive and desires come as a response to that need to feel good in the world. And one of the primary obstacles to head types is this underlying fear. Yep. Body types. Body types are going to experience an underlying feeling of anger. This comes from their inability to control the world or control themselves, right? Other people are unpredictable and start thwarting imposing their will upon you. You can't get your stuff under control inside and you really wish you had better habits. Anger is going to begin to rise up. You're angry at yourself, or you're angry at the world, or you're angry at both. But it has to do, again, with that intuitive side. Intuitionally, you're a body type. You want to control the world. You want to have agency. When you lack agency, anger is going to be the natural response. I don't want others to impose their will on me. I really wish I could get my habits under control. This is how anger often materializes. It's about self-oversight.
Yeah. And, culturally, we have a weird relationship to anger, right? Because we all know people who are just angry all the time. And the problem is that they didn't have a very good childhood and they don't know how to handle all of these emotions, right? Mm-hmm. That we all know people who don't get angry when they should. I'm one of those people. And anger in this space is that when we are faced with the reality of being alive in this world, we believe that we have some amount of agency. And when we enter spaces where we don't have that agency, obviously the thing that's going to happen is we're going to get mad about it. There's a natural resistance to not being able to enact our will. Mm-hmm. And to have other people mess up that will somehow. And the anger it's just sort of present for these 3 types all the time. The other types get angry or they don't at inappropriate or appropriate times. These 3 types, 8s, 9s, and 1s, all have a sense of anger that's just with them all the time.
Yep. Taking in the world intuitionally, and so are going to be aware of the present obstacle. And that awareness of the obstacle produces a need for control, autonomy, and that underlying anger. Notice how this works then. The 8 is going to push their anger outward and push against the obstacle because they're going to fight for their own agency. They're going to establish boundaries. They're going to be very direct. All of these are postures that the anger that emerges from the 8 is, if you were to whittle it down, it's about, I can't be in control of my space right now. Mm-hmm. 9s, in response to their anger, do something different. 9s are going to withdraw. They're going to take a big step back. They're going to seek spaces of harmony, but it's again a response to their inability to deal with the obstacle and have control in that space. Yeah. And so where are the places that I can find peace? I'm going to step into those spaces. And it actually is a response to their control issues, and underlying motivation is again going to be an anger at the world. The world should be different. So I'm going to take a big step over here because you guys are screwing up.
Yep. And then anger at ourselves because we stepped back when we shouldn't have. And
yep.
And then our anger came out and now we're angry at ourselves again and blah, blah, blah. Anger is it's a whole thing for 9s.
Worth noting for 9s, the anger is going commonly both ways, at the world that's all messy, but also at themselves for their inability to act. Worth naming there.
Yep.
1s generally have an anger that goes within because if only you could control yourself, then everything would be just fine. 1s want to be undefiled and whole. Their anger pushes, if just you got your stuff together, then everything else would be fine. So the control issues are much more personal here. I want to have the strength of character to control myself. And when I don't, I get frustrated with myself. And that's how the anger works.
Because it's obviously my fault, right?
Blame, internal blame. Anger. So you have fear for 5, 6s, and 7s. You have anger for 8s, 9s, and 1s. For 2s, 3s, and 4s, we want to say that the underlying feeling is shame, or some people will talk about relational anxiety. But shame works for us in terms of, in this way. The heart filter is naturally going to focus on past relationships and producing this need, getting their need for attention fulfilled. And if you didn't get somebody else's attention in the way that you crave, something must be wrong with you, is what the 2, 3, 4 intuitively believe. Like that's the filter that they're coming for. So like the feeling that emerges from the fact that they didn't pay attention to you, the feeling there is what our culture has called shame. It's like I wasn't getting the response from other people that I really, really wanted.
Yep. In the space where you gain some of your identity from what other people think about you, what other people think about you is law.
Mm-hmm.
These are the rules. And it doesn't matter if that person when you were 6 was just wildly unhealthy and told you things about yourself that you never should have heard from any human being, right? That you may still have internalized that. And the feeling of shame that a lot of us carry with it. Now, again, we're talking about a particular kind of shame. Like there's the type of shame that other people put on you in order to control you. And we are fully on board with undoing the damage of that shame in your life.
Agreed.
Those kinds of conversations are good and helpful, and we highly endorse. And also there, for 2s, 3s, and 4s, there is this sense of someone didn't like me because of something about myself, and now I have to navigate the world trying to either hide that part of myself, or it basically, we don't want anyone else to see that thing that made other people not like me.
Yep.
So now I'm going to perform, I'm going to help, I'm going to internalize. The goal here is to make sure that people give me attention, that people like me, that people stick with me, and eliminating those obstacles, which feel like shame.
Exactly. One will notice head types and body types often can get to that spot where they just don't care, right? Sometimes they care. 6s will probably care. But some of those other types, they're just like, why do I care what other people think about me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll hear that. But 2s, 3s, and 4s have a difficult time getting there.
Yeah.
And it's because they're drawing in the world through a lens. And it's their heart, it's their relational core. It's I feel good in the world when I connect with other people. And when I don't, the emotion that kicks out is the emotion that our culture commonly would call shame.
Yeah.
So,
and to all of those people, which includes me, who say, I don't care what other people think about me, the reality is you're not just your body. You're not just your mind. You're also a relational being living in a world with other relational beings.
Exactly right.
And
you should care about speaking the local language on that front.
And you may not care what everyone thinks about you, but there's at least one person who it matters what they think about you.
Yep. Yeah. We will say it later in future episodes, but a primary for TJ and I when talking about Enneagram is the focus of Enneagram, and what it really is seeking to establish in us when it's doing its job is balance.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can see both ways that you fall off the horse, as it were. If you're riding a horse, there's 2 ways to fall off a horse, the left or the right. I suppose you can bucked off the back, but you know what I mean. You can care way too much about what people think, or you can care way too little about what people think. Both of these are mistakes, as it were. But heart types are going to be susceptible to caring way too much about what other people think. In response to their underlying shame, notice this, the 2 is going to want to be wanted. And so, like, when others have not shown you attention, appreciation, have not shown interest in you, it's going to move you a little bit more. I'm going to try and earn, the affection of others, because at their core, twos want to be wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Threes are not gonna earn it. They're gonna grab hold of others' attention by winning. They're going to establish their value. They're going to do it in ways that the culture says this is what we value. Through trophies, through you get to go on stage, your name is carved into this marble over here. This is how our culture establishes value, and the 3 is going to take hold of it.
Right.
And the 4 is going to stand in their space, unique and significant, even take a step back. If you really saw the amazing person that I am, you would walk over here. And that's the kind of, that magnetic, I'm going to pull you into my relational sphere. The 4 works.
Mm-hmm. In a similar way that the 1s sort of internalize their anger, 4s are fine with getting a little bit more of their sense of identity from their own internal life.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of that sort of withdraw is, if nobody's going to come stand over here, that's fine. Obviously I'm missing something, but this is how I know me.
It's a better way to put that. Yeah. Worth naming. Anger, fear, shame. It's again the case. TJ had started down the road of saying that, like, commonly in like the ancient traditions, Plato, Christ, Buddha, you're going to actually see them dividing human beings into these 3 ways of being. Mm-hmm. But so too, if you look at contemporary psychology, if you look at cognitive behavioral theory, for example, it likewise, this, by the way, like the most popular form of therapy that's out there right now, divides people into 3s, into exactly this way of dealing with some of the issues that we have. What Enneagram does is it just jumps into these traditions, talks about the 3-ness that we all experience in our one self, and says, let's name some of these emotions. Let's name how we're processing the world. And once you can name your emotions, then you can actually do business with your emotions. Is this healthy anger? Is this anger out of place? Is this healthy anxiety and fear? Is this anxiety and fear out of place? Should you care about these relationships? Or is it the case that shame really just doesn't need to have its place here? Mm-hmm. Real helpful. That strikes me as that middle level. So once you understand how you're drawing in the world through those glasses and the emotion it's creating, you could probably do business with that for a couple years.
Or your whole life if you want to.
Expert ninja level. We're going to bring in a concept that is called orientation to time. Part of our way of experiencing the world has a preference towards the future, the past, or the present. You will notice that each of the centers have a preference. It's almost like they say, you know what, the future is what matters most. The past is what matters most, or the present is what matters most. This is just how the glasses kind of work. It's kind of like saying, I'm looking through the telescope. What matters most is the galaxies, is the huge scope of the universe.
Right.
Or the microscope comes in and says, no. What matters most is the cellular level, and everything's made up of these little bits of atoms, and they're all working together with the laws of physics. And no. What matters most is what you can see at the present day level.
Right.
There is no best here. Past, present, and future, they all matter.
Right.
But we naturally, here's the move. Given our type, we naturally have a predisposition for emphasizing one of them over the other. Mm-hmm. The future is what matters most. The present's what matters most. The past is what matters most. Ninja level, you're going to kind of get your head around this. And that's where we're going to go here at the expert level. You got thoughts before we jump in?
Nope, let's just do it.
There is something about taking in the world. It's almost like breathing in. You breathe in the world. And given your type, you have that emphasis. So 5s, 6s, and 7s are going to have a future-focused filter. They're going to take in the world with an eye towards future problems and towards future realities. What might happen is the primary question when taking in the world through the future The future is unknowable. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? I need to think about this. I need to get my head around this, right? And you'll notice when you start going down that path, well, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen. That's where the anxiety and fear is going to come from. It's going to come from the fact that you have no idea what's happening tomorrow or the next day or next week, or, who knows what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Going to produce a need for stability, for security. Where are my resources so I feel comfortable? It comes from the fact that we have that slight predisposition towards the future if we're a 5, 6, or 7.
Yeah. That head information, that collecting the data, gathering the resources, categorizing information so that you know where it is when you need it. Like, that is about preparation. It's all about planning for something that's coming, or having an idea so that you can make a plan when it gets there, or like a go bag is preparation for the future, right?
Exactly.
It's you have something that is ready in case this one thing happens. You could grab it and go. All of the ways that these head types, 5, 6s, and 7s, get the information about the world, it is in preparation for something coming.
So notice this type-wise, the underlying fear for the 5, if you possess what you need to feel secure, knowledge, resources, assets, if you possess what you need to feel secure in the future, you're golden. Right. 6s, if you have established the connection, the relationships, if you have anticipated the problems, they're required to be safe. You're golden.
Yeah.
For the 7s, if you have thought through where you're going to jump when things are going to break, we all know things are going to break. Let's jump to some place that is much better than the broken place.
Mm-hmm.
If you have thought through all the possible unpleasant experiences, but also envisioned all the great experiences ahead, you're golden.
Yep.
Notice how the response to underlying fear is materializing in how 5, 6s, and 7s come to the world, and what is like really most important to them and most essential to their motive, to their radar, to what they value.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that.
But
it was good.
Present focus is 8s, 9s, and 1s. We've talked about this before, that it's about control. Anger emerges because the 8, 9, and 1 doesn't feel like they have control or don't feel like they have autonomy. And so that is, I want control now. It's not about the future. It's not about the past. It's like right now is when my intuitions are, the radar for my intuitions are out there scanning the world. Do I feel comfortable in my body at this point in time? If I do, I'm all right. But if I don't, I'm going to hit back.
Yeah, the collecting the information for the head types is about the future, about getting ready for a future possibility. The body exists in the world now. And the 8s, 9s, and 1s are gathering information about what's happening now through our body. We don't gather information about the future through our body. That is a mental process that involves analytical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about what is happening now, our experiences now, what's in front of us. That's where the anger comes in. Like that, this sense of the world is about what's happening right now and what we can experience right now.
See this most clearly in 8s, because 8s are going to actively oppose things that oppose their will and their self-determination. And so the anger that we see in 8s is actually the exact same anger that 9s and 1s have. It's just much more obvious because 8s anger goes outward at the world to control the world first. That's where their radar is. It's let me just establish the boundaries first so that I don't feel vulnerable, and I'm going to hit everything that is seeking to impose its will on me. Mm-hmm. That's a primary for 8s. The 9 is also very aware of a chaotic world, and that chaotic world exists out there. The chaotic world also exists within themselves. The best move for the 9 to their anger is to jump away from it, to withdraw away from it, to get away even from the anger itself. And let's just find some place that just feels comfortable. And that move is a retreating move common to nines. And that is also retreating not only from the world out there, but also retreating from even themselves and their emotions.
And retreating from what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Because it's causing me anger, which is, messing up my sense of who I am. And
it's a both and for the nines.
Mm-hmm.
Ones not being good enough to control themselves, nor control the world for that matter. A lot of their anger is going to go internally. If only you were better, then this wouldn't be happening. You'll notice that the anger is just kind of this energy, but it gets unleashed in these different channels.
Mm-hmm.
8's going outward, 9's, 1's it's going inward, 9's it's kind of going both directions. But it's the anger at the present moment. The present moment's what matters. I don't feel comfortable intuitively. I don't feel good in the world. And so the swell of that underlying feeling is going to materialize.
Yeah. Yeah. I need a sweater because it got cold outside. And if I stay in this cold long enough, I'm going to get really mad about the fact that I don't have a sweater.
True. And I suppose all the types can probably relate to that.
Sure.
And probably all the types can relate to this. Again, we can all engage our body and we can all engage our head. We all know what it's like to be afraid of what might happen.
Yep.
Might all be aware of what it feels like to be angry at the present situation. But 8s, 9s, and 1s are going to have just a special emphasis on the present moment.
Yep.
Because that's where their eyes are. Lastly are the heart types, 2s, 3s, 4s. 2s when you don't feel wanted. 3s when you have not taken hold of the accomplishments, the achievements you're going to find your value in. 4s when you live in that world where you just feel fundamentally flawed. That's where that underlying feeling of shame is going to come up. But you'll notice that it is all a past-oriented emotion. It takes into account what has happened with your relationships. It focuses on yesterday more than it does today or tomorrow.
Yeah, no one who's even remotely healthy has shame about something that hasn't happened yet. Right? That's just not how it works. You may get embarrassed about things that are happening now, but you don't really get shame about it until it starts to affect your relationships. And now the thing that you were embarrassed about yesterday has turned into shame because it has affected your relationships and it's now in the past. Right? Yep. Shame is born out of things that happened to us in the past.
That underlying feeling is motivational. It's energy. It propels action.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this with 2s, 3s, and 4s in terms of where they target their energies. If I was just significant enough for the 4, I wouldn't feel this past sense of disgrace in these episodes of my life.
Mm-hmm.
If only I win the thing tomorrow, says the 3, then I won't feel like I'm worthless like I did in the past. If I'm just present, earning, and I get other people to see how much I love them, then I won't feel rejected like I did in the past, says the 2. All of that's coming from that space of shame.
Yep.
That's what I got. The ninja level material just plowed through in no time there.
Yeah.
The centers are the beginning of the Enneagram for a lot of us. The centers is where it kind of all starts. Oftentimes it's the first thing that's taught, but in my mind, it's actually the hardest thing to kind of get your head around. So hopefully some of this kind of gives you some foundation to build the rest of the Enneagram on. So since you are new to this, that's where to start.
Yep.
Start with just like, how am I seeing the world? You can imagine all living organisms breathe in and they breathe out. They breathe in, they breathe out. Enneagram speak, breathing in is your center. This is how you take in everything. And once it's inside of you, then the rest of the Enneagram does its business. But that filter, that initial filter of how you take in the world, colors everything else.
And if you're more confused than you were when you started this episode, that's okay. This part of things is tricky. And it can be especially difficult if you've never paid attention to how you take in information.
That's true.
So if this isn't working for you, that's okay. Skip this and come back to it later, because it'll probably make sense later.
Yes. Friends, it would mean the world to us if you'd share this with somebody you love, preferably somebody who is kind of at your same level, somebody who's just getting into Enneagram, so you can talk about this. One of the things that TJ and I will routinely come back to is one of the best things you can do to get into Enneagram is to talk about it with somebody you care about, somebody who cares about you, and you can just discuss, this is how I see the world. This is how you see the world. This is a great conversation to have. Like, are you more emotional? Are you more theoretical, cognitive? Are you more intuitional? Just going down that head, heart, body, and just like hear where they're coming from. You can talk to anybody about this. I suppose they don't even have to be into Enneagram. Like, you could just pitch the question and see how people, come to the world and what their emphasis is. But if you go down that road, share them this episode.
There we go.
Give them something to think about. As always, we have all sorts of new stuff on the Patreon. Our books are up there. Our lots of other recordings are up there. Deep dives into some of the types are up there. Our best resources are going to be on our Patreon page, so do check it out. And if you haven't yet seen our material on YouTube, go subscribe. That's about what I got for folks who are new to this. You got any last words for him?
I got nothing, man.
He's CJ Wilson. He's officially awesome. I'm Jeff Cook, and who you aren't just isn't interesting.